should real estate brokerages be allowed to sell houses off market and pocket listings for more than the first 24 hours? Should they have 2 days? Should they have a week? Should they have a month? Or should they just have whatever option they want that's available to them? Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Adam Whitney. I'm the CEO of Seven Figure Flipping and Blackjack Real Estate. Today, I've got an incredible podcast episode for you. Super interesting stuff. I love when people are creating a bunch of noise about real estate. The brokerage compass is stirring up all kinds of problems, talking about agents should be allowed to have pocket listings. That means they should be allowed to they are arguing to do more quote unquote off market transactions. Now, isn't this fascinating? The retail world, who is routinely going after investors who do direct to seller marketing and saying it should be listed on the MLS. It's not ethical to buy properties off market because they typically don't understand it. Now we've got an entire large brokerage, Compass, making an argument to the National Association of Realtors that so currently the rule is if you get a new listing, you can quote unquote market your pocket listing, meaning it's not on the MLS yet. It's my listing. It's signed. I just haven't put it on the MLS. You have 24 hours to put it on the open market. So in that 24 hours currently, you can send that out to some buyers you think it would be great for, some agents who are looking for it, and you can expedite getting that deal done before you actually list it live on the MLS. Now, Compass is making the argument that it is putting sellers at a disadvantage by taking properties to the MLS and not being able to socialize them off the MLS. And the reason that they're saying that is because that they believe the things like Zestimates and certain values and certain data like days on market, if I put it onto the MLS today and it sits around for 45 days and in 45 days from now, somebody goes, oh my gosh, that's been on the market forever because they still believe it's 2020, 2021. There must be something wrong with that house. So they believe it's putting the seller at a disadvantage. They also believe that the predictions on price and what the value is of the property is hurting the sellers. Why do they believe that? Well, it's the same thing we've been saying as investors for an extremely long time, which is Zestimate is rarely accurate. Zestimate does not factor in condition of the property. And I'm saying Zestimate, but you could apply this to realtors' valuation they give, to anybody's valuation they give. It doesn't do an actual comparative market analysis by looking at all the characteristics along with the condition of the property. So those two things primarily are the main argument. There are other brokerages, however, like EXP, who's saying, no, that's crazy. We need to keep everything on the MLS as fast as possible. And if you ask me, by the way, I'm an agent. The MLS and the National Association of Realtors is like a mob. It is not. It's this big money thing. They just got sued for a bunch of money. They keep raising MLS fees. The value that they bring to the actual agents representing and helping buyers and sellers transact properties is very minimal. And if you're a real estate agent, you know that like just in Florida alone, there's like a dozen MLSs you would need to be signed up on. And MLS is a multiple listing service. That's where the agents list their properties. And if I'm here in the Tampa area where I'm at and I want to list a property over in Orlando, like they're probably on a different MLS than me. I've got to get into that MLS somehow, probably have to pay for it, probably have to follow different rules and make sure it gets the widest view. So it's not, they act like they're some heroes and they really care about sellers and buyers, but I'm not sure that that's true. It's big big bureaucracy and organization. So I believe as an investor, you have a competitive advantage. Now, we've been transacting deals as investors off market for a very long time. We have private buyers list, people that we know, like, and trust, people who will do what they say they're going to do. So, if a deal comes to me in say the Panhandle of Florida, and it's not something that I'm going to buy, it's not my buy box, or it's not something we're willing to take on at this time, I call one of the other investor friends I have, and we get that deal done for that seller on their terms. Now, they might say, well, it doesn't go to the open market and you can get more money on the MLS. We've bought deals off market that were on the MLS. At one point, the sellers were completely dissatisfied with it, and they took it off the MLS and sold it through us off market, which is totally fine. They wanted a cash transaction. They didn't want it to go through. They specifically didn't want to work with real estate agents or brokerages, and we helped them do that. So you have to understand there's a significant value there. So here's a couple of quotes by Compass, because I think these are interesting things that we should be considerate of as we think about serving our clients, who are people we're buying houses from, so that we can fix them up and sell them, or fix them up and keep them as rentals. The CEO of Compass said, using MLS data, real estate websites have built their business models at the expense of homeowners by showing negative insights on their listing, such as days on market or price drops or home value estimates. I think it's kind of funny because the CEO of eXp Realty then fired back. He said, the repeal argument is just one company's cynical effort to achieve profitability by convincing American homeowners to do something that's demonstrably against their interest. This guy is obviously a company man. He believes in the bureaucracy of the NAR and of the MLS. You talk to most agents, at least most agents that I've talked to in the Florida area, are not super pumped about the NAR. They're not super pumped about the MLS and all the fees they charge compared to the value that they bring to them as agents, enabling them to serve their clients at the highest level. The Century 21, Coldwell Banker, Century 21, all these people, they favor keeping the rule too, because, it's the way that people have always done it. And I'm not sure it's the most favorable thing to help sellers. And this is where you gain a competitive advantage. The infighting that's happening in the retail world, you've got people suing the National Association of Realtors, and retail agents come into these seller houses. They say how credible they are, how licensed they are. By the way, I'm licensed, and it is a super low barrier of entry to get that license. And that test and that training actually doesn't teach you anything about being a real estate agent. It just teaches you a bunch of rules that I'm not sure who they favor. I'm positive that they definitely make money for the National Association of Realtors and the MLSs, but I'm not sure they favor too many people. They do, however, on a good side, help to teach agents certain vernacular and different types of verbiage and jargon in the industry that helps them to better collaborate with home inspectors and surveyors and people like that. That's probably one of the few benefits I see in that training. So it's just really interesting to see all of that infighting. So they're getting sued, the NAR's getting sued, the brokerages are getting sued, hundreds of millions of dollars are thing. They changed the agreement. Buyers, so it used to be mostly the listing side paid for the commission of both real estate agents, which you could see range from anywhere from 4 to 8 and even higher percentage of the transaction. So if you have, let's keep it simple, $100,000 house, and the real estate agents were getting 6% total, 3 for the seller, 3 for the buyer side, that is $6,000 of that property that the seller is paying. The seller was paying it. Then they said, well, that's not right. The buyers need to cover their own cost and the sellers don't need to cover that anymore. The problem with that is the buyers are already super tight. The sellers have equity. So it's not usually cash out of their pocket. Like, they're not having to come up with that money. The difference is now, if the seller is unwilling and they don't have to anymore, offer compensation to the buyer's agents. The buyer would have to sign an agreement with the real estate agent. They would have to agree to pay that real estate agent out of their pocket in order to find them the best and most advantageous house. I don't know about you, but to me, I'm not sure that that is the proper incentivizing of somebody to be a good fiduciary for you. If you're a buyer and you need every penny to get into your dream home, your biggest purchase of your life, like shelling out an extra $6,000 to $30,000 to real estate agents really isn't helping you get into the best property. So I think their model is broken. There's a lot of infighting, and now you have leaders at brokerages arguing about how it's done because it's all changing. So do you really think that investors don't have an opportunity here? Because if you do, you're missing out. I had a seller talking to our company, Blackjack, who was literally cutting down a sign in their front yard saying, like, we got to get rid of this agent. They don't listen to us. Like, we just want to sell it for cash. And there's this belief that, like, why wouldn't everybody just sell on the MLS with the real estate agent? That's just not the truth. And I think it's becoming further and further from the truth as there's so much infighting at the top of these brokerages and at the largest organizations like the National Association of Realtors. Now, here's some other interesting stuff from this Washington Post article is, agents don't actually have to join an MLS, but in order to like actually do your job, you basically do need to be on the MLS. So they tell you don't have to, but kind of you have to. So it's one of those legal loopholes in CYA for the National Association of Realtors. And anybody, honestly, who holds back their listings anyways, and they're not on the MLS, like, I don't know how you can best serve your clients. I don't know how you can, it's like a double-edged sword. Like, if I don't have any other skills like an investor does, and I can't get my property out anywhere, how am I going to best serve the clients? I just don't think that you can. Okay, so that CCP rule that's being challenged right now of like, do I need to list it within 24 hours or can I have more time to find a buyer off market is problematic. It's another reason why real estate agents don't provide as much of an advantage as they used to for sellers. Keep this in mind. You used to have to go into a real estate agent office. There was no digital MLS. There was no Zillow. There was no realtor.com. So they had to go in and look through paper books, look at listings that way, and then develop a plan to go see them. It was much needed at that time. Today, sellers and buyers can do a lot of their own research by and large. Big thing is they need help with the paperwork, which honestly, most title companies can help them. I just think, you're seeing the value of the retail agent. I say that with, all the best intentions, being an agent myself, that the value is not there as much. Now, if you're just like, hey, I used an agent to help me buy my house. I used a buddy of mine who knows the local market. I didn't want to do any of the work. I was totally good with them making a commission. It wasn't coming out of my pocket anyways. And he knew about new construction. I was buying a new house. So I used an agent. There's always going to be utility in situations like that. Okay, so here's what they said about the potential losers in this article. Along with the benefits of market competition, backers of the rule point to fair housing principles. They said the whole point of creating an open marketplace is so that anyone, regardless of gender, race, age, or any other protected class, can see everything that's for sale. That's a totally valid point, but under off-market listings, agents try to sell them inside their office. Here's another quote. So if a buyer isn't working with an agent in that office, they won't even know if the property was for sale. That's exclusionary by definition. They go on to say the essence of the CCP rule and fair housing laws is to make sure that everyone can see all homes for sale. Selling a house is not the same as another commodity like a candy bar or a couch. Housing shapes generational wealth and educational opportunities. You need a free and open market for housing because the stakes are so high. Well, that's interesting because they don't even require all agents to be on the MLS. So how would those agents sell those properties? Man, this is, it's always in one ear, out the other ear, both sides of their mouth, whatever analogy you want to use. But they're constantly making the legal argument that benefits to bureaucracy, in my opinion, as much as possible. Here's some other things. CEO of Anywhere says a repeal is a disadvantage for both sellers and buyers. They want to keep the rule in place. That means only 24 hours before it goes to the MLS. Buyers get the lack of transparency of their current listing inventory, and over the long run, sellers will have less info of what's happening in their market. Okay, that's fair. We start to get less market knowledge about what's happening in the real estate market. I can agree with that. The winners here, what this article is saying the winners are is scrapping the rule will help sellers by letting them market their homes as home builders and real estate developers do. For example, they could use pre-marketing and multi-phase marketing that protects their listing from potential risk of MLS exposure that include accumulation of days on market and public price history. So price drops. So you're not going to see days on market, you're not going to see price drops. It's just going to be privately marketed. And by the way, there's like what the house is worth, and what the value of the house is. Like the comps could tell you your house is worth X amount of dollars, but the true value of the property is what somebody's willing to pay for. That could be a lot more, that could be a lot less. Who are you to determine what the market wants to do? Of course, this guy goes on to say, who's in favor of this CCP rule being pulled back and them getting more time to market it privately, by forcing home sellers into a system of negative insights like days on market and price history, the CCP creates a risk to list that discourages home sellers from publicly listing their homes. He argued, lift the rule and sellers will have more ways to market their home and increase inventory, he added. The CEO of EXP didn't buy that. He's just like super against it. He says our overseas agents complain that they need to go to 10 websites to get an idea of what's for sale. When I helped my parents sell a home in Belize, it took about 5 years because of difficulty getting it in front of buyers. I mean, that's sample size bias there. That's like one property in one country. It's not the same. So it's pretty weak in my opinion. Here's kind of the bottom line is an open and free market. This is a capitalistic country. People want to make money by selling their houses. They should have every option available to them. That means they should have the option to go on to the MLS with good ethical standards and rules in place that protect buyers and sellers, but they should also have the option to take it off the MLS, to market it privately, to see if they can get the buyer that they want at the price that they want before it goes to the MLS, and does have to be exposed to days on market or price drops or faulty estimates or whatever it may be that create a psychological effect on their buyers. This is a free market. We should have all the tools available to us as sellers and buyers of houses. So I'm actually for this. I'm okay with them allowing private listings to happen in a longer duration so that you give the seller and the buyer more options. We as investors inherently look to give buyers and sellers more options. And believe it or not, most investors will say listing on the MLS is an option for you, and it will likely get you a higher price if that's the most important to you. So here's where I see the advantage for us as investors. It's an opportunity to educate our sellers, folks who want to sell their house to us so that we can fix it up and resell it. We should let them know what's going on. They should understand what the pros and cons, the advantages and disadvantages of using this greater bureaucracy of the National Association of Realtors or any of these brokerages who are all, by the way, for-profit companies, and then real estate agents, because although they should be a good fiduciary, they are incentivized to make money. This is how they make a living. This is even how investors make a living. So I think the best course of action is for us to create complete transparency, for us to give the most options possible to these folks and let them choose what they believe is the best option for them. This is great because if you can come to your sellers, if you can go to the people who want to sell these houses off market and you can educate them and be transparent and show that you're genuinely, I mean, of course you're trying to make money, but you're also, if you're ethical, you're not trying to do it at the expense of somebody else, understanding their options and letting them determine what's best for them. So I'd like to know from you guys if you can put it in the comments or send us a message over at Seven Figure Flipping info at sevenfigureflipping.com. Let us know where you fall on this. Should real estate brokerages be allowed to sell houses off market and pocket listings for more than the first 24 hours? Should they have 2 days? Should they have a week? Should they have a month? Or should they just have whatever option they want that's available to them? Send us an email at info at sevenfigureflipping.com and tell us, or put it into the comments. I can't wait to hear what you guys are thinking. Thanks for listening. See you next time.